So what I actually do here at the museum is I'm a visitor service attendant. And I used to always say, I'm just a visitor service attendant, until I just started playing with kids and just started doing birthday parties. And in archives, doing transcribing of the handwritten minutes of the city, and learning more about the colonists and the people from that time since 1903 as we move forward. And then in that, I found more about myself. So to present this, I hope you come with me on a little adventure. We call it Big Mama Rugama's Adventure. And it is going to be soulful. I hope that you learn something, anything, even if it means you learned that the museum does things, that the museum exists, and that not only that, we work together with the archives. History and heritage work together, all of us. You are making history, and so we are Black history. It's not about your shade. My kids love this one. Black is brown, is beige, is tan, is black is brown. Really, it's because I had a book for them that was black is brown is tan. All three of my children arrived different shades, but we're all just as Black, and we're all just as Lloydminsterite, and just as Canadian. So enjoy, and forgive my shaky nervousness. So as we're here, I want you to think about that and what I just said. We want to embrace everything about heritage. So before I just get into mine, it's the embracing of Lloydminster and having different people here. It wasn't like that. I came here 25 years ago and I was considered the one. However, Michele was here, so I'm confused. But we got to know each other as the ones, and we've done other things together before this. We just kind of stay in the background and do it, which leads to a lot of the things we're going to talk about. Being invisible. A lot of us are invisible, not visible minorities. A lot of surveys, are you a visible minority? Nope, been invisible my whole life. I am not Black enough. I am. And I'm definitely not white. I am. 23andMe says, I'll give you those datas later. But I've done it, and just so you know, it matches everything that is in the archives and the genealogy that my biological parents have given me. It came back 100% of what they said. So in here, you'll learn a little bit about that. And what brought me to Lloyd was exactly that, my biological mother. I was raised by a family from Trinidad, hence the Trinidad everywhere, and what that means to us. I was adopted when I was born, a white Canadian mother whose parents are from, she was born in Thompson, parents are from Tisdale and Thompson, Isle of Wight in 1903, Grandpa comes. So I know that side, but what I didn't know was the cultural aspect and what diversity is. It's not a color. Diversity is indeed different things that come together to make it beautiful. In this room, you're diverse. It's not about color. We are diverse by our thoughts, by how we were educated, by our preconceived notions, and our unconscious biases. We all have it. I always say it's not always racism. Sometimes it's prejudice. Sometimes it's willful ignorance. And sometimes it's lack of understanding. We hear things, certain things are in books, and we are told only follow what's in the books. Well, I read it here and it has to be true. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to tell you the truth, and for me, as a mixed person, to have the opportunity to tell my story. When you grow up like this in the 70s and 80s, it isn't always an opportunity. It isn't okay to not be Black enough, and I think a lot of people don't hear that. A lot of times, especially my biological white side, they embraced me. But we don't know what to do with you. What are you? What are you anyway? That's a very normal question. It's not acceptable, but it is very normal. So let's talk about some of the missing pieces and the idea of Black History Month and why we're even here. Black History Month isn't just to perpetrate and continue the Malcolm Malcolm X. I was going to say a basketball player, to be honest. Oh, good times. This is how we are. So Malcolm X, MLK, Rosa Parks, yay. And then what happened? And that's even when we give guided tours here. And then what happened, right? Going to the archives, okay, we're here. And then what happened? Those missing pieces, hopefully we sprinkle some in, but really, hopefully we entice you to think about what's missing. And if you can contribute, or you know someone who can contribute, or you just get more involved in the arts and culture in Lloydminster, you'll see that diversity is very beautiful. When people say they don't see color, you're a liar, because color is beautiful. Color is not just the shades. It is the fact that we all see flowers and the green in the spring and all of that. So come with me. We're going to go on a little venture, like I said. And this adventure, I want you to imagine the magic school bus, if you will. Not that bus, just the magic school bus. And I hope you know what the magic school bus is. I'm assuming we're all of age. So once upon a time, there was a show called Magic School Bus. But we're going to take the Magic School Bus and we're going to make me Miss Frizzle. First of all, because I have the hair and the attire, but also because I love it. That's my favorite part. That's why they have me working with the kids. But we're going to tweak it into Quantum Leap. And I don't know who I am in there. Maybe just the guy with just the box. I don't know. Put them together and let's learn some more about being visible and history. So like I said, my biological family is white Canadian. We'll go even further back, they're British. And some even further back, German. French, German, British, East Indian, Black, Spanish. That's my mix to answer that question. And where they came from, I've had the honor of reading my father's books, going home to Trinidad, meeting these ancestors, and touching the home my father was born in. That isn't fancy. It's mud. It's thatch. What they do is they don't leave that and destroy it. They build on it. So when my kids went back, it's thatch, and then it's like renovated. And then you have cousins that live in Little Shack, and they're quite content because they're happy. And then you have the cousin all on the same family yard, big old mansion. They all choose to just remain on the land that belonged to my grandmother and my grandfather, who are the Thurolds. On this screen, though, that is Grandma Harper. So anybody who's been around for a long time, if you know, you should recognize Pat Harper. She looks a little bit older and a little bit sicker, and she was in this picture. But when I first came here and I met that family, the Harpers, she just would stare at me and stare at the kids, and just kind of that, she was quite prickly. And one day at a gathering of the family, she looks around at everybody and she goes, Angie, in silence. Angie, there used to be colored folk around here. And we laugh a lot at everything. I laughed. My kids laughed because it wasn't offensive. I took that as prickly Pat Harper, pivotal in the community, very pivotal, as someone reaching out and saying, I see you. I see you. And I know something that maybe we can relate together. She's amazing. She volunteered. She had everything, even with her oxygen. This picture is one of our last conversations, a little bit emotional. And it was right before she passed. But this is the same lady who would be like, let me get those boys. And she would take them, teach them to skate, and bring us weird gifts that always smelled like smoke. She smoked a lot. So everything she gave us stunk, but we loved it. Some things we were just like, yeah, we'll just keep it in the porch for a few days, it'll air out. She's pivotal because she told me about the mazes in the Shiloh community. That leads into people coming up to me and saying, hey, there were black people over there. And I laugh because I'm like, yes, I've heard. I also know what the Shiloh Church is. And Shiloh, for anyone who doesn't know, is a branch of the Baptists. It's Southern Baptists. So although I was raised in a very, very Catholic home, I went to Shiloh Baptist Church as well in Edmonton with the Mazes, with the Lanes, which are the two major families. Because one thing that Black people have done in Canada is not only try to join us together, but hold on to one another and anyone who wants to come along for the ride. That was Maddie Mays as well. There's tons. That is where, yes, the archives has some really good information on that. And it brings us to the gap. How can we bring it forward to after the Mazes, what happened then? It's been over 100 years. And then even then, we were here. I've been here for 25. I am Black history. I am a pioneer. I am a trailblazer. Because I was able to bring my kids out of Edmonton, throw them on an acreage, and say, fall out of trees, get dirty. Their friends are all different, whether they're artists, whether they're into math or science, they're all very, very unique. And I think raising them in Lloydminster gave them that opportunity. Being involved in things. You'll see another picture, and you may have noticed on the poster, Joshua and Auntie Pearl. Yes, it wasn't just to get your attention, it's real. That's my Auntie Pearl. She has passed. That's my mommy who raised me. She has also passed. These were my knowledge keepers. These are my matriarchs. Despite not having the blood, they're aware of my blood. They're aware that I'm part Trinidadian. Mom taught me that. She embraced it. They both looked at us and went, in our day, we weren't allowed to play steel pan. We weren't allowed to dance. We had to go to school. You studied, as they would say in the Caribbean, ya mats. You study ya mats? I hated that word. It's math. Don't correct your immigrant parents. It's not a fun time. But Auntie Pearl was fantastic at mathematics. She's the person who taught me how to count back change. It wasn't my first job at Dairy Queen. I knew it when I was 9. She ran a catering business. Her name's Pearl. It was oyster catering, and that's one of the first things on my resume. Because Black History Month events were actually held at the RAM, the Royal Alberta Museum. And I grew up running around back there in the exhibits from the time I was 4, because they didn't have Black History Month, but they did have events. And my mom and Auntie Pearl always set up displays, and they had food and all these things. It was also the time that we as kids could get together and be like, yo, I remember you. Like, that we all were on different parts of the city in Edmonton. So it was these events that would bring us back together. We're hearing our music. We're all a lot of mixed kids, but so different mixed that we didn't know we were the same. We didn't know we were the same. I didn't know how much the same I am until I read the book that's out there, Blackberry Sweet Juice. Lawrence Hill also wrote the Book of Negroes. That one might be more familiar to you. CBC did it as a documentary. Let me tell you, I've read it twice, and I do have the illustrated book out there. CBC did an amazing job of taking what he captured and putting it on the screen, unlike most Hollywood things. They didn't make it sparkly. The book is not sparkly, but it makes you know where you're coming from and where your roots are. The biggest thing, too, the reason for Josh and his Ukrainian shirt is that was his choice. I like that, he was 4. I like that. Look at my sweet moves. And he would always do this, and we're all like, okay. He wants to join Malunka. For me, that's awesome because I grew up at multicultural events. Shumka was always dancing. There was us with our Afro-Caribbean dancing. The Italians were doing something. We were used to that, embracing other cultures, sounds of accents. My linguistic abilities come more from having been raised around different ethnic people, different people of Black origin. It doesn't matter. If it was Africa, my ear adjusts. Throughout the Caribbean, we have different Creoles and Pidgins, different types of dialects that some people would say, I have no idea what Sean Paul's saying. It's like, we do. It's kind of funny. Doesn't really make sense. It's great. So those artists that are putting things out, we are beyond Jamaica, let me tell you that. Okay, Jamaica's beautiful, but that's just one part of Black. It's nurture and nature. My mama, Lenora, Now, I did put her name there, Roach. It's pivotal because my great-grandfather that came from the Isle of Wight in 1903 and settled in Tisdale, he's a Roach. Spelt the same way, and I'm getting closer with my work and my genealogy that the families may actually be related. The beauty of that is one of the first people to hug me and say, I would have kept you, was my grandma from Tisdale. When I learned I was adopted and I had this other family, I thought, well, it makes sense, 1975, who's keeping a mixed kid, really? It was a difficult time for a lot of people. And in my mind, I saw it as maybe she's doing this for me because she can't provide, you can't take this back to Tisdale in 1975. I don't feel I would be who I am. Come on in. I am who I am because of Lenora. Yes, I put up a piece of my scrapbook. I made actual tangible evidence for my children. There is a bin that shall carry on Mama's treasure box, tickle trunk, if you will. And I'd never liked myself. I grew up thinking I was ugly, so I'm gonna give you that. The other picture showed you my hair. Ain't so great when you don't have dippity-doo. Mixed hair is difficult because I have children with all different, it is a very challenging thing to deal with. Once you know that it's perfect how it is, you can be proud of it. You can rejoice in it. She taught me all of that. She sent me to Shiloh Baptist Church. She put me in French immersion at the age of 3. She said, you don't want to know who your father is? Did everybody understand that? Okay, that's how Trinis talk. So her voice is so sing-songy sweet in my ear that is why I'm able to be here and work with kids and be passionate in the community. This woman, I kid you not, when arriving in Canada, slipped on the stairs coming out. We're privileged to have these little pedways for the cold. She came down the stairs in the winter, yay, welcome to Canada, and breaks her hip. She was a nurse. Her husband was a draftsman. People are coming from the Caribbean and from other places to help build Canada in the 60s, particularly oil and gas, and we'll get more into that. So, Mama Lenora, she also was blind in one eye. She had sickle cell, she had diabetes. They told her she would never walk again. I've been told that. I'm right here. But I know I'm here because someone told me. I don't care. And you know, people bullied me because of the way she was. And I didn't see it. People would say, well, you look at you, you have a handicapped mom. And I was like, really? She had 67 children from the government of Alberta go through her home as foster children. There are 2 of us that she adopted, both of which have Trinidadian parents. This woman was looking through the papers. Okay, I got you. Several of the indigenous kids that came, yes, 60 scoop. She's resting in peace and has no idea of the knowledge and truth we have now. In her mind, I'm giving a home. She hated the way Danya, one of my sisters, came. Her hair was chopped to here and just bludgeoned. It wasn't cut nicely. She started putting both our hair in braids. You're gonna know who you are, she said. And so each of the children, as they came through the home, and they were every color, but she was also a nurse, remember? So she got medically fragile foster children and ethnic children. It was a time when Senior Trudeau decided multiculturalism is Canada, and it is. Their thing was, we're not taking these mixed babies and indigenous babies away. We're putting them with good Christian brown people. It isn't until we grow up and go, yep, there's a lot of glitches in that. There's not good things in my history. There's some horrible, yes, the things you think about and go, so did you ever experience? Yes, we have experienced it. But something Michele and I have said, and we're still smiling, we're still here because of matriarchs like Lenora. All the languages I speak, all the art, I'm not to the artists in the room, not your kind of brilliant art, but the public arts. And loving that Josh did Ukrainian dance, and loving that Alex did indigenous drumming, and loving that they have come here and went, what else about Lloyd? What else can we do, right? One of the big things that Mama did was not just teach us our culture. She showed us our culture. This picture is from my little school, École Father Leo Green, and I am the littlest one who doesn't know what she's doing or where she belongs, right there. I have straight hair at that point in my life, but man, did they love dressing me up. I have so many pictures with our carnival costumes and our traditional garbs because they knew it was important to not just show us, but show everyone else. It's beautiful. It's vibrant. So from a young age, I'm going, oh, okay, I don't quite fit in, but I like this. All of us are mixed and we end up being cousins. It's kind of cool. We've all gone on to do other things. What interests me is that at that time, we also didn't have just other black students in school. This was very unique. It was like 2 hours in the music room. So we're making history too, that the museum has allowed us this space. We do other programs here and lots of presentations. So this is a historic moment as well that we can then add to that, right? If you'll notice right about here, Caribbean Canadian and all the lists. And remember I said I'm not just a visible minority. This survey is from Health Canada's working with another project for Black and ethnic women and our healthcare. This came to me, no, you have to pick the, right? Look at it. You have to really, and I picked Caribbean Canadian, but I guess I could have picked this, and I could have picked that, and I also really could have picked that. And then, of course, others always a fancy one that we like. We enjoy that one. You can't be other, pick one. Just kidding. The coolest thing about this is not what we choose, the fact that we have a choice. This is a health survey from 2024, asking this 50-year-old, what can we do for your health? How has your health been? Horrible. Because yes, the assumption is that Black women don't feel pain. We are aggressive. We don't know how to talk to people to get our ideas across, and that we're just overreacting. I have spent 20 years very, very, very sick. Whether it's Angela's smile or the fact that I didn't want to die, I did have to jump up and down and say, stop saying that. No, it's not just because I'm Black. No, we all have this list of symptoms. I don't want to just blame the healthcare system. It's the system that was built this way. If it wasn't brown people, we could go all the way back to Irish and Scottish. We would always have that disconnect. But when I moved here in 1997, I had a really cool roommate. This is Miss Ellis, is how a lot of people would know her. Janaea, formerly Janaea, she has found herself a lot deeper, as many of us have. She's mixed, just like me, and we grew up together. We played steel drums together. I went off more into singing, and she went more into the instruments. She was a teacher here in 1997, a Black teacher who they said, the Black teacher, and we're going, of all of us mixed kids, she's one of the fairest. It's a very confusing thing for me to be the Black one, because I'm just like, I don't know, I don't see it the same way. She had a tough time. And that stuff people don't always want to hear. I've had people say, but Lloyd has always been welcoming. I'm going to say for a fact that is not true. It is more welcoming now, absolutely. But there have been some pillars in the community who have fought for that change, even if it's only by example. She went on to do a band. We had a dream. We were going to make a band together, and it was going to be so cool. It was going to be reggae. We were quite young. And guess who else was our roommate? Tanner Lane, the great-great-grandson of the Lanes from the Shiloh community. Every time I started to prepare this, I bumped into myself, like this crazy carnival mirror game. I'm like, when I want to kind of focus on local history, because I kept bumping into the people I already knew. And I wanted to share that. Now, Waymatea, she's a businesswoman. She homeschools her kids. She's a mentor. She has been nominated for Junos. She is still in a band, but has also gone off into others, teaching music. Amazing. amazing person, and she's Black history in Lloyd. Where in the world is this Trinidad you speak of? Well, this is kind of generic-ish. As I said, we're not Jamaica, so that would be Kingston. I don't know if you guys see my little cursor thing. Yeah, no, you can't. So we're not Jamaica. It is a part of the Caribbean. The Caribbean stretches all the way from there, the Gulf of Mexico, all the way down. And you can kind of see all those beautiful islands. And if we wanted to, we could play a game of guess where Rihanna's from by shape. Barbados, that's right. And we all link. Caribbean people, we may have our little, rivalries, but we're all in it together, and we are referred to often as West Indians because Columbus was sailing around and he was like, oops, oh, this is the West Indies, must be. So that's why. But very famous now. The University of West Indies is in Trinidad, actually. Trinidad is the wealthiest country in the Caribbean. It is oil and gas. Shall we bring it more local? I love to say Google Zoom. We're going to zoom in and we're going to zoom out to the beauty of places we had no idea we were so connected to. As you see my little notes, and there's a steel pan on display there. My children have learned how to play the steel pan. The only instrument invented in the 20th century, acoustic. We have all the tech stuff, but an actual instrument, the steel drum, made from oil drums. Originally, it was just bamboo because they took away their drums. Yes, slaves were emancipated, yes. The reason we have mixed people is because they brought in indentured servitude and said, you could live there, but you're gonna do this and this and this. And there was still so much control, colonized by the Spaniards, and then of course the British. But they have resources. Pitch Lake is really cool. So when you're out there, there's a little piece of petrified asphalt. My kids have theirs somewhere. When I took them to Trinidad, we went to Pitch Lake. Just imagine bubbling tar that you can touch. Now they give you a stick, it's a little tour, and they give the kids a stick, and they say dig, and they swirl it up like cotton candy or maple something, and they say, just leave it here, you guys finish your tour, and when you come back, you're gonna see, and it solidifies. While you're doing that, they're learning about the indigenous people, the Arawaks of Trinidad, the people that are gone, annihilated. They were too strong. And what happened too is you're on an island, and it's a lot easier to kill people if they're in a controlled space. There were Carib and Taino indigenous people as well. They were able to survive. They spread across the entire Caribbean, and many of them hid in caves. The thing that saved indigenous people was the Spaniards sort of having superstition and always being afraid of everything. That saved our lives. They would go in the caves and make creepy noises, and they'd be like, run away. Really, it was the indigenous people. My favorites, first Black Miss Universe, that's right, from Trinidad. Third Black Miss Universe, also from Trinidad. Just imagine growing up and you're constantly thinking you're not good enough, nothing happens, you're not pretty enough, and then you're seeing representation. And I didn't see shade, but I knew culture. Of course, you've heard of Limbo, right? Maybe Calypso, also from Trinidad. This tiny two-island nation has way more than these few facts, way more. And I would talk to you all evening. 28 days is not enough for Black history. One evening is not enough for us. I'll give you an example, though, for funsies and interactive. Who knows the song, Feeling Hot, 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 doo-doo, feeling hot, 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 da-na. I know you know it because it's Buster Poindexter in the 80s, but it's not. It's Arrow from Trinidad. Who let the dogs out? Woo! Who, 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 who let the dogs out? Also Trinidad. Follow the leader, 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 follow the leader, follow the leader. Also Trinidad. Just like Elvis took some stuff and some other people took some stuff, it's still happening. They're taking our stuff. The coolest part is we are given our heritage to remember it. Part of that is my biological father. He is one of the founders of the band that you saw at the beginning, Exodus. That band started in my mom and my grandma's yard. It started, and the name Exodus is because, like any other group, they had a thing, and they were like, no, I don't. I'm sure they were like, nah, man, me ain't doing that. I ain't studying that. Nah, you crazy. And barking at each other, and they had to have an exodus from the first band. And that's why they named it that. We're leaving, mass exodus, let's go. Exodus is huge. It's over 40 years old, 45 now, and at a high level of percussion. I have a video for you to see of my kids playing, and also to see their grandfather's reaction to that. He doesn't look well here. He's been up and down in health, but he's wearing the shirt from his band that he's very, very proud of, and he was able to pull his own money together. These instruments are not cheap. The one in the hallway is worth about $5,500, and it's old. It's not a new one. That's the one he has there. So he has that. It's actually Daniel's back. And so, without further ado, a little bit of joy, shift the mood, to see even how I started playing. I was little. There's pictures out there as well. Very little. And we had to stand on milk carts. And we were like, do. And I laugh because I took the video of my children with my father, but it wasn't until watching it again, and I was like, oh, look at his little feet. You'll see what I mean. We start young so that we can embrace it. Just like Josh started Ukrainian dance young, we start this young, and what happens is you grow to love it, whatever it is you're learning. I'll stop talking for a minute. You can enjoy this. It's my father and my children in 2008.
Right, play together with Danny and Alex. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Very good. Can you play it one more time for me, please?
One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Wow. Very good, you guys. Thank you. That's a nice anniversary present. And Grandpa?
See, Alex is a little older. Alex understands right away. So is Danny. But he was just watching them. I didn't show him nothing. He just watched Danny and he loved it.
So how was it for you to teach your grandchildren?
I am very proud to be able to do that, and I would like to continue. Too bad they're living so far in Saskatchewan. They're living closer.
Okay.
Make all of them pan men just like Michele and them.
Okay.
But they're good. They have it in their blood. It's in the blood.
It's in the blood.
All right. I want to try something.
Okay.
Danny and Alex will not play.
Okay.
I want only Josh to play. Josh, if you play it without a mistake, you're going to get a tuning. But if you make a mistake, you have to play it without a mistake. Danny, you too smart. You want me to try you with that, but I know you and Alex will be good.
You and Alex and Danny will break you.
Oh, I know. There's no thing, but I want to see him because he has more intensity. So, all right, Josh, you alone going to play. If you make a mistake, no tuning. But if you play it without a mistake, I'm going upstairs for a tuning for you. How about that?
You can do it, Joshua.
You can do it.
1. Take your time, eh? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Toonie, man, no mistake, man.
Good job. Yay.
All right, same thing for Danny. If Danny played without a mistake, a Toonie too.
Oh, Dad, you can do it too.
And then we're going to try Alex. Alex, you just watch the pad. Just watch, don't play. Danny. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Joshua, back up.
Very good.
Good.
Toonie for you too. Alex now. Alex, you can't let your little brothers win and you don't win. All right, take your time. Eh? Just take your time.
Alex.
1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Excellent.
Angela, you're right. If I keep up this, they're going to break me.
My mom is smiling in heaven, or wherever she may be. I think it's up there. Because that's why she taught me. I didn't accept her offer to know who my father was until I was a lot older. I just kept saying, I love you. I don't care. I was not upset. Other siblings that were adopted were upset. Well, they threw me away. They gave me away. I saw it differently. Not everything was perfect, and I say that with emphasis. But tonight is not about that. It's about what makes me joyous and powerful and strong and resilient. It's not just the steel drum, but if you listen to the steel drum, it will take you somewhere. Yeah, probably Jamaica at first, but then you know it's not even from Jamaica. Yes, the islands love to play it. It's just Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. But they had a weekend with their grandpa, and that's what they did on a Saturday night. He still has those things. He is now, yes, in a seniors facility, like a residence more so. And I was hoping he wouldn't, for his own heart and mind and spirit, to not stop playing. He is a pan man, is what they call them. He started with it hanging around his neck. They walked with those things. The one Alex is playing is actually called a double second. So it is an orchestra. That whole thing is an orchestra. His is called an ensemble, and they just call it an orchestra or an ensemble depending on how many of those instruments exist. I started playing what's called the tree bass. So growing up, I called it a tree bass, thinking must come from a tree because I'm 5. No, tree is 3 in our dialect, tree bass. And so same thing, only I was on a milk crate. And so we learned boom, 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 boom. We learned bass lines based on this. And man, my ear is very good. But at 5 years old, you make a mistake and it crushes you. They didn't let it crush us. Nah, man. You'll hear that. We always say that. Nah, man. Nah, man. Come out. Try again. Miss Lady. The Trini sound is the most beautiful sing-song accent. As a matter of fact, in 2013, Gallup polls declared that Trinidadians had the sweetest and most beautiful accent. Also, same year, they decided that we are among the most positive people on earth. That one shocked me. That was research. It doesn't stop there, though. Let's go back. Let's come Google Zoom. We're going to quantum leap right back to Lloydminster. When I came, yes, we had Michele and I, cool things. Michele took my Spanish class. We learned that she already knew Spanish and was like, really, what are you doing here? But then, wait, you like salsa? What? Where were you my whole life? So we were able to have events and do things, even in little pockets. But then I met other black people. The first black people I met, though, why is this being silly, were the Granhams. Not sure if you know them. The Granhams are from Trinidad. Wendell has now passed. Yes, we can laugh. Very, very fun, vibrant family. They also came because they were laborers and machinists and electricians and doctors and accountants. My father first came as an accountant, my biological father. The Granhams, when I met them, the joy they had on their face, they're like, oh gosh, a Trini and Lloyd, way. And then I met the daughters, and they had no accent. And so for us, it's like us. It was like us, right? We're from here. We don't really have an accent. But why was the parents so strong and theirs wasn't? Well, you learn. They're growing up in Rainbow Lake. They're growing up in these random little places. Amazing people. Because Lystra is still one of our downtown merchants. Loyal to the downtown. 15 years. 15 years is black history. 15 years is history. You have a black business owner downtown that her parents came here, planted their roots here. She came and said, I'm going to invest myself here. And their granddaughter, so Sam is the youngest. Sam has now moved on. He's the one we kind of knew and did things with the most. He was most active here and raised his family here. The kids know their kids. They still participate in Kerry West, though they've moved to Calgary. But we all kind of linked and went, whoa, okay, there's people here. We got this. And it was beautiful to see that, yeah, we can be raised here, love and maintain our culture, and adapt. We're not assimilating, but boy, can we adapt and get you to love us as well. Here's some more stuff as we want to keep it local. This is the juicy parts. When I moved here, things that shocked my brain. How do we have a company named Trinidad Drilling? Like, do they know what Trinidad is? I got my little saucy self. I'm like, why are they just taking our name? What does that mean? They didn't. The research is, it was Mike's mom that is from Trinidad. Now, like my adopted mom and many Trinidadians, my father as well, hardcore Catholics, to the point of joining something called the Youth Catholic Organization. They were so devout, but open to everything else. She sent me to Shiloh Baptist. I've been to all the churches. I studied religion in university. Mike says, that's why we did it. It was my mom's faith, because Trinidad is Trinity in Spanish. Quick lesson for free. Dad at the end of a word is often TY in the English word. Trinity, Trinidad. Equality, igualdad. Fun, free lesson on the house. Thank the LMA and its sponsors, mostly us, and you for being here. I also like this because I feel like we forget about these different people who are also pillars, who built Lloyd in a different way, right? This was a crucial time. They struggled too with getting equipment or working with other companies. So they said, Mike said, with his dad and his brothers, I'm gonna build my own company. Before I press play on this, it goes to that whole idea of nurturing us and continuing to inspire us to want to love ourselves. That's not what he's going to talk about. He's going to make you a little bit uncomfortable. It may not entirely, it's not bad, but it's uncomfortable. This is the man that taught me steel pan. One time, I made a horrible mistake, and I cried, and I went under the milk cart, because I was so small. So I was like, this milk crate, and I put it over my head, because, you know, you can't see me if I'm under there. And I'm hiding, and I just hear these footsteps. And he lifts the crate, which wasn't fully covering me, and he says, Miss Lady, come. And you're like, And he holds my hand, puts me back on the milk crate, gives me the stick. Keep going. Don't mind that. And this is my favorite saying. My mom used to say as well, don't study that. Don't study it. Whatever you keep saying to yourself and repeating goes in and it stays there. So if you're always just focusing on the negative and your mistakes, you can't move forward. He called me Miss Lady. He taught me for my calypso singing. He helped me write the music part. I was the writer. Calypso is political commentary. And it was the only way Black people could express themselves. And a lot of people, to be honest. Country music comes from that too. Being able to say something that only certain people paying attention are gonna know. Cecile, though, came in the 60s to Alberta. Well, first to Ontario, and then to Alberta in a time where Fort Mac and Athabasca were not yet what they are. They hired several Caribbean oil and gas workers. You can find that information on the Alberta Labor, Heritage, or History Institute. They have a website, they've done interviews, they show all that history and they've documented it. No, it wasn't all Underground Railroad. That happened, and there's lots. But there's lots that has yet to be told. Cecile has a beautiful accent. I hope you can understand it. He's also the person that has saved me from stage fright several times, and also taught me what a gentle, firm, and knowledgeable man can bring to your life.
I am the first Black in Canada to have a professional electrician ticket. I'm the 31st person in Canada to get that status. That's what this ring is. I'm a professional electrician. I supposed to put letters behind my name, I don't. Said I'm gonna give you supervision, make you a supervisor, and you're gonna be fixing all the crane in Athabasca. He said, you're working for this company, so we're going to charge the other company. When you go and fix it, they pay us, we're going to pay you. I said, fine with me, I know. I said, I'm working. I go out now, I give me 10 guys to work with. Again, they don't want to work for me. And that same Athabasca pop mill up there. They don't want to work. Frank was a supervisor on that same job as a welder supervisor. I went to Frank. I said, Frank, I have a problem. I said, they just make me supervisor, but I said, Frank, they don't want to work for me, but again, no problem. He said, fire them. He said, fire them. He said, go back to your manager, tell him, and fire all of them. I went back to him and I said, they don't want to work, you know. He said, they ain't working for no Black man. He said, fire them. I said, nah, boy, nah, I can't do that. He said, come with me. Follow him. Fire 3 of them. 3 of them down the road, fire them. And the other 7 decide to work. He gave me 3 other new guys. And after that job, I quit the union. I worked until them I done. I'm going to tell you something what happened to me in Hannah. They were building a drag line in Hannah for Lusca. And I was the guy who was supervising the building and the drag line. They bring some guys from Texas to build the drag line. They bring it, they buy it from Texas, they destroy it and bring it here and building it back up here. So the company from Texas was building it here. And I was supervising the building. And walking around, you know, little black boy, you know, with the nut bag and walking around looking, making everything, because I was the company eyes, you know. And one day they put up a Confederate flag on the top of the drag line. So the manager come there, because you're out in the mine. He came, he look up and he see the flag. So he called me. Say, look up there, see that flag up there? I said, yeah, I see it. He said, that bothering you? I said, me? I said, no. I say, I ain't see no paycheck on that. That ain't bothering me. He said, well, let me tell you something. It's bothering me. So come with me. He said, whosoever put that flag up there, take it down or take the next plane and back to Texas. In about 2 minutes, the flag was down.
So Cecile George, very much a mentor, first one. But we're here now. This is my DNA. This is my story. Trinidad is so diverse in and of itself, but what they brought to Canada was the beauty of coming together. My mom did the Congress of Black Women of Alberta. The women that came together, my mom's best friend was a white lady from Calgary. And we all did things together. That's Megan. So that picture is us at a Black History event when we were very little. And I'm gonna give you a little tidbit about our media. We do not hold the stick like that at all, first of all. And second of all, we would not be beside each other with someone plugging their ears. But we want to make this a beautiful article. And so they told us, you're gonna do this, and I want you to hold the stick like that. And I'm like, but we don't. It's in your wrist. So you should be able to just go boom, 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 right? And then Megan was very young. We're still good, very good friends. But she couldn't remember what to do. And I'm like, he said, do this. So we know the story. Now you know the story. It's cute. But Carrie West just celebrated their 40th, and we all got to be there. Trin Can played, which is the band we were in. Pepper Seed, another band that has broken off. Bands from Calgary. And they line them up. And they play everything from O Canada. I learned how to play on a 6-bass Phantom of the Opera. You imagine Phantom of the Opera in an orchestra like this. It's beautiful. Now I want you to just hear what I'm talking about. And this will be a little documentary. It encapsulates everything I was saying. And that way you're hearing it, you're enjoying it. And then we'll take a little bit of a break. You can have some refreshments, take a look, use the washroom what you need to, and then we'll carry on. So I hope you enjoyed this part too, and that I was able to share my joy and my passion, not just for my own culture, but for what I love and how much I've grown working here. It is my colleagues here who reminded me that history is important and your history is just as important, and that we're allowed a space. All marginalized people, all different cultures and backgrounds and stories.
I have the honor and the privilege of introducing our next speaker, Michele Charles Gustavson. She is a Lloydminster resident. She came here in 1987. She completed her schooling at the Lloydminster Public Schools, Winston Churchill, E.S. Laird, and the Lloyd Comp. She graduated at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, returning in Lloydminster in 2000 to start business. She now runs a global researching, coaching, and consulting business. Recently, in November, she was elected to City Council, Lloydminster's first Black female City Council member. Michele?
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah asked me how she wanted to introduce me, and I'm like, there's too much to say. So just hit the highlights, and you'll get to know me through the presentation. I think that's the best way. I was really honored to be asked to speak today from Angela and the crew here at the archives. Today is actually my birthday. And thank you. And I couldn't have planned it. It was, Angela told me the date. Well, she was flip-flopping between two different dates, and she said, okay, it's gonna be the February the 6th. So I'm like, really? Okay. Well, and I told my mother that I was doing this presentation tonight and that it was my birthday, and she reminded me that 47, and that's okay that I say that, 47 years ago today, in Baltimore, Maryland, it was a wicked snowstorm. Wicked and cold, and she's like, we barely got there on time. And then here comes Michele. And she'd say it just like that. And I can't help but think, what an auspicious coincidence that I would be speaking to you about our family's heritage in Canada, but also, more importantly, here in Lloydminster. Because there was a time that we asked ourselves, what are we even doing here? So when I was doing this presentation, I asked myself, what is a pioneer? And the first picture, these are all pictures actually from the archives. I went and did my deep dives on the website, which is awesome. And this was a family that's 1922 here in Lloydminster area. And that might be what you think about as a pioneer. Or maybe you think, okay, pioneer, old pictures, old people doing old-timey things. So you might think Shiloh, right? Black people pioneer. So old-timey, old times, black people. You might not realize, and as Angela said when she was doing her presentation, the more I did this presentation for you, the more it was for myself. And when I thought about the word pioneer, I go, oh wow, but we were. Because the characteristics of a pioneer have nothing to do with old pictures, or underground railroads, or even US history. It has to do with people who are looking for something more. And they have characteristics in common. And so I thought I'd share my story based on what those characteristics are. In 1987, yes, we did come to Lloydminster, but our history was before that in Canada, starting in 1981. And this was a picture in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, of our first winter. Okay. We didn't really know what that was going to be about. But my dad was so excited to get his first fur hooded, I believe that was like the Canada Goose of back in the day, with the real fur, right? And the real canvas. And we wanted snowsuits so badly. So the thing about pioneers is that they have certain characteristics in common. Let me just go. This is what I found out while I was thinking about this talk, of the characteristics we all share in common as a pioneer, no matter if it's old-timey or this time. Vision, courage, faith, innovativeness, tenacity, and resilience. And so I just want to share a little bit about my family and how those all play together, and how proud I am that I am standing in Lloydminster all these years later as a symbol of all of those qualities. Oh. Angela spoke about the difference and the diversity between Black people. We don't all come from one place, and we don't all have the same history. And I find that one thing in common in Canada is that there is a lot of focus on the African diaspora as well as the Caribbean, but very, very little talks about Black Americans who come to Canada. We are a different breed. We have different motivations, different pain points of what makes us Black. These are my roots. This is my grandfather, Gerald son Charles Sr. from St. Lucia. Okay, anyways, West Indian. A few islands up from Trinidad. Close. He had dreams of becoming a doctor. So he moved to the United States, but when he moved to the United States, he found out that's not possible for a Black man. So instead, he became a chauffeur and started his own business. Little did I know that I come from a long line of Black entrepreneurs. His sister, Auntie Vava, had a store in St. Lucia that sold goods to the community, an entrepreneur. Auntie Vava had her store. It wasn't her man's store, it was her store. Black entrepreneur all the way back. So he started a chauffeur business, and because he couldn't become a doctor himself, he saved money. He saved money. Put a pin in that. My grandmother, Rosa Washington Ricks, had my dad, Dr. Gerald Charles Jr. On the other side are my grandparents from my mother's side. My mother grew up in Pennsylvania. She was the last of 10, Johnstown, Pennsylvania. This is Laura Florence Brooks Jackson. I get my middle name from my mom, who is Florence Jackson Charles, and I am Michele Florence Charles Gustavson. It's all handed down, it's a thing. And then my grandfather is William Henry Jackson, World War I veteran stationed in Germany. In those days, he was not allowed to fight. Get that. Goes to war, but not allowed to fight for his country. Instead, stationed in Germany doing menial jobs, just like back home. But you can't keep a good American black person down because he was also an inventor. And he invented some small parts that were used for aviation for the planes in the war. When my cousin brought that to me, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Can't vote in the country, can't fight for the country, but I can invent for the country? He does have sealed patents in his name, William Henry. So this is my father, Dr. Gerald Son Charles Jr., and that's my mother, Florence Elaine Jackson Charles. This is a picture of my dad, who is in the Howard Marching Band. So what you need to understand about Black Americans is that segregation existed in their life, which means we couldn't be in this room together, couldn't go to school together. And so after after the Civil War, black colleges were struck. They're called HBCUs, historically black colleges, where black people could go to school and have post-secondary. My dad attended Howard University, where he did his mechanical engineering degree. And while attending there, you see out in the display his fraternity sweater from that college. Fraternities at HBCUs were extremely important because they were a fellowship group for the people who were going to that school. We are all black people, so we are going to go to the school, and we're gonna create this fraternity so that when we leave school, we have peer connections, professional connections that will allow us to thrive. So he is in the lifelong brotherhood of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. He was also in ROTC, which is, it's kind of like our cadets, right? So it is another way to create connections and fraternity. He's graduating here from the very first dental school ever. So Baltimore, in the University of Maryland, was the first dental school ever chartered. And so he graduated with his dental degree after he got bored of being a mechanical engineer. Yeah, he was a mechanical engineer, worked for the federal government, got bored. It's boring. So, okay, I'll go back to Howard, get a few more credits, and then I'll go to dental school. And if that wasn't enough, after he finished dental school, and my mom and him, because my mom is here, you'll see her, she actually graduated from Mount Vernon College first with an associate's degree in the time of affirmative action. Okay, so there's a lot of talk in the news about affirmative action, getting rid of the DEIs and all this kind of stuff. My mom benefited from affirmative action in that it was a private girls' school, all white, that would only get funding for the school if they had black students. So she got a full ride scholarship to attend a school I remember when I went to Queens to go look at it, she goes, this looks like Mount Vernon. To basically attend an Ivy League rich girl school to get an associate's degree for free because she was a black student. She graduated from there and then went on to Morgan State, another HBCU, so historically black college, and got her degree in dietetics, and then worked at Johns Hopkins University, where my dad was also doing his internship as his dental internship. They met, they married, and you can see, look at my mom's a little silly. You can see her with the wedding cake there, trying to get in on the wedding cake. They married in Washington, D.C., and shortly after that, my dad got accepted on fellowship, which is scholarship, to Harvard University to do a master's of public health. When you get bored of engineering and then you just decide to do dentistry and then you just get to the Harvard. So they moved to Boston so that he could attend Harvard. And at that time, Boston was very white, didn't like what they saw. They encountered many, many instances of discrimination and fear tactics. Someone tried to burn their house down while they were attending school. Another stoned their car. My mom was afraid for his life on multiple times. So, Black Americans in that time had to exhibit the resilience that you see. Because at every turn, you could just fold up and say, I'm done here. We are the epitome of resilience. Tenacity to keep going, courage to just say, you know what, take one more day. And it was those characteristics that I remember my dad saying, just before we moved to Canada, we said, well, why did we come to Canada? He goes, you know what happened? He opened up a dental journal, because it talks about, teeth and different stuff that you're supposed to know about the teeth. And in the back of a medical journal, there was a little tiny wheat sheaf of Saskatchewan on an ad. And Saskatchewan at that time was asking immigrants to come to Canada. There was a gap in skills. Sound familiar? So he applied out of the University of Maryland, because by that time I was born. I forgot that my sister was born in Barbados, and they lived overseas and in Switzerland and like all these things. But he answered the ad for the Saskatchewan dental plan, and that is when you could go get your teeth done at school, and the government paid for it. Should we ask them for that again? Anyways. So they said, yes, come to Canada. We need your skills. We need your skills. And my dad, talk about vision, said, I don't know where I'm going, but it's better than here. Because at that moment, he was an associate professor at the University of Maryland, and there was no way he was going up higher. This was the glass ceiling, and it wasn't happening. So he said, let's move to Canada. So we packed up, you see the good old Volvo, okay? Packed up the Volvo, packed up the Datsun, which was, they don't even make Datsuns anymore. Okay, so we packed up that, and we moved to Yorkton, Saskatchewan with the Mayflower truck. And we landed at 47 Calder Place. And he became the dentist of the dental plan, and all the little kids had to come see him. And I'm telling you, you go to Yorkton, Saskatchewan, Ukrainian Central, they've never seen what you look like. And that was our introduction to being, it was the first time to being the introduction of the only forever. You are the only one in the whole room, in the whole town that looks like you. Sometimes that was good. It's kind of cute when the little kid comes to the dental plan, and then the little kid goes in for his checkup and then comes out from his checkup and says to his little friend, My dentist is the chocolate one. Legit scenario. It happened. And all you can do at that point is go, that child, that is blissful ignorance. The kid is not racist. The kid just doesn't know. But then there's the flip side, which I'll get to in a second. So that's us in Yorkton. We did 5 years in Yorkton, and then Regina, and then all of a sudden we land Lloydminster, 1987. So we've been here since 1987. My dad is definitely the first black medical professional in Lloydminster. He was the first. His dentist office, you can see that dentist office, you know what that's gonna be? That's now turning over to the dialysis unit. So it's the building right beside the hospital. You'll see this little archway. That was his office, and it is being transformed in the dialysis unit in a crazy twist of fate. My dad, nearing the end of his life, needed dialysis, and he got it at the hospital, and now the dialysis will be placed in his office. So he opened his family dentistry, and just, you guys, a man of vision for community service, for welcoming even people who didn't think he belonged. And the reason I think that's true is because it was easier to be the only and carve a path than to be not given an opportunity to build something of your own. Here we at least had the opportunity. There was an opportunity in Lloydminster.
Let's check these guys here on the bottom.
The change announced by the health minister involves what children are eligible for the program. Now your kids can enter the dental plan the same month they turn 5, instead of September of the same year. Likewise, the program ends the month they turn 14, not September of the year they reach that age. Despite this change, some dentists can still see bad among the good in the program.
I would say from the practitioner side, but on the negative side, I think would be the fee guide, okay, which is less than the regular fee guide that we would use to bill the parents.
Many parents are still at odds with the new program, too. It was more convenient to have everything done at the schools, like under the former dental plan.
Another real drawback, I suppose, would be access, because many parents now have to travel, of course, to seek the dentist and to take the kids to the clinic.
Another problem is dentist participation. The government claims 97% of the province's dentists are working with the program. But Dr. Charles believes the figure is much lower. He says many signed on initially but have been turned off by the low fee schedule. And Charles wonders if the number of children being served under the program has actually dropped because of these reasons.
Offhand, I would have to say lower. Because with the school-based program, there was virtually all the kids, the only thing that stopped the child from being seen was that the parents elected not to have them in the program.
The bottom line with any health or medical plan is whether it's fulfilling its needs and serving the public adequately. In the case of the Saskatchewan Children Dental Plan, the jury is still out.
Any complaints? No. Nothing heard?
Unfortunately, it's still not that painless with the new Saskatchewan Dental Plan. Glenn Kirby, Broadcast Centre News.
Thank you, Lloydminster Region Archives. When I was preparing the talk, I went to go look for the pictures for the Pioneer slide and everything, and I was actually at the policing event just as city council, and there was a reporter who said, "Oh, Michele, like there's all sorts of videos and stuff in the archives of, I remember you at debate and all different things." I said, "Okay, sure." So I was doing the talk. I'm like, let me toss in Dr. Charles. Oh, you guys. I was sitting at my computer and I just hit play and it's like watching an apparition. And so many community members were his patients. They remember him for the brand of painless dentistry, kind spirit, sharp dresser, and all of those things became me. And the thing about Black history is that I shared with you, the black and white pictures of the people who were in my family, and, oh, good, we did the American Black thing, and, my dad was at the, everybody talks about Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream speech. My dad was there. Like, you live that, right? And all of that seems far away, the old pictures, until you look at yourself and you go, I am a product of all of that. And I am a product of him being in this community, helping this community. And so I look at my journey. It's interesting because a lot of times when I've been asked to talk about either Black history or prejudice or what is going on in the world with Black people, a lot of people will ask me, well, what was your dad's experience, as a Black American? And what was his experience with racism? And I'm like, and mine? Because just because we grew up in Canada in a place that isn't necessarily as vocal about their racism, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so what you'll see here is just me through the timelines. So this is my sister and I, Nicole, in Yorkton when we first came. And because Yorkton, Saskatchewan, nobody's seen someone like you, I remember the first day of school being chased home and stoned. Stoned. I came home with a bloody nose. And I remember saying to my mom, why don't they like me? She didn't have a good answer, except the real answer that every Black kid gets. You learn really, really, really young what people think and how they perceive you. And then, moving to Lloydminster, we were the only, so you're in the school system, you're taking your school, and every Black family will have the kitchen table talk about how you should be out there. You have to be twice as good to be as good. Everything you do is reflected on us. Whatever you do, they will think we all do. And so you learn to conform. And I don't mean this to be a Debbie Downer about being different, but Stories Untold is about the real feelings that people who are different have. And part of any truth, reconciliation, equality talk has to include you understanding what it feels like to be that different. It hurts. And for many, you will never have that feeling. So it's maybe not possible for you to be in the shoes, but you've got to put yourself somewhere close to understand it if you really want to be able to embrace each other as community members and understand. By this picture, this one here, that was me in high school. By that time, I was a national debate champ, okay? I was on my road to city council, didn't know it. I was getting all the best grades, doing all the right things, student council president, accepted to Queen's University, all the things that you should do. And I would tell you I was my most unhappy. Because you're doing all the things you should do so that people will see you the right way. And in the end, sometimes they still don't. This is me with my sister graduating Queen's University. And at Queen's, I left Lloydminster thinking I'm never coming back. Because I'm like, I'm out. Nope. They didn't like me over there. I'm going to go to the diversity. University is the place. This is where I'm going to find it all. And I will tell you what, I went to Queen's University and showed up at the African and Caribbean Students Association, the meeting, and they didn't like me either. I'm not African and I'm not Caribbean. They didn't know what to do with me. So I'm like, really? I go from whitewash, sorry, but like Lloydminster, where I'm the only, I try to go over where there's people that look like me, and they didn't want me either, and I was in limbo there too. Now, I will let you know that I found my way with my Latin friends, the Spanish and Latins. So by second year, I was dancing and teaching salsa, merengue, bachata, cumbia, because it was my minor. Spanish was my minor. And then by fourth year, I was the president of the Spanish and Latin Students Association. Neither Spanish nor Latin, okay? But I found my place. But just another piece about the diversity. And that even within Black culture, there is still pockets. The next picture is me at 25 years old as the president of the Chamber of Commerce here in Lloydminster. How did I get there? I was a business owner, so after I graduated in 2000, I came back and started a business services business, a family business. It was called a Mailboxes, etc. You probably know it as the UPS store now. And I helped businesses market themselves. And so they would come in, they would ask me questions, I would help them do their marketing materials, and I got very involved in the business community, because that's what I know how to do. I had a very good example of being involved. My dad was in Rotary and all the things, so I copied him. He was still practicing at that moment, so I actually joined the Tuesday Rotary Club, which he helped found. And I remember the day that they inducted me, and he handed me my badge. So I was young around the table in places in business in Lloydminster, but what that taught me, being around that table that young, is that if I can be around the Chamber of Commerce table with those guys, I can be around any table. This is my mom. This is before she actually moved from Lloydminster. This is she moved to almost 3 years ago, but to Ontario to be with my sister. But just before that, I published my Amazon best-selling book, Show Up Confident, in 2020, and it was a tribute to my parents. It is a book full of lessons that they taught me. There's a section for my mom. There's a section about what my dad taught me about the way you present yourself is the way you think about yourself, and that is important, and what that means for your success. And I hand autographed that book for her and shared it with her, and it was a really, really important moment of tribute to her. And then in the rest of there's just a little showing about the rest of my career, which the career portion isn't important, except to say that the values that I got from my parents are the things that allowed me to do the things I do. I have always worked from a place of vision, and had it not been for my dad to have a vision of something more, we wouldn't be here. Had he just gone like, okay, we'll just hang out in the US and see what happens, we never would have had a path like this. And that takes courage. That takes faith, which is believing in something bigger than yourself, whatever that is, even if it's an ideal. Innovativeness means you got to do something a little different. In my work, in my business, people will see me around town and things like, oh my gosh, you're that stylist, you're the fashion lady. I was like, well, kind of, but not exactly. Kind of, not exactly. Because what I've done in my work is an innovative twist on how you get dressed, in that I want you to know the philosophy and the psychology behind what you put on your body, because it matters. Everything you guys don't know this yet, but here's your little mini teach. This is like the mini class that Angela gave. Your mini class is that every single article of clothing you put on your body has psychology attached to it. And depending on who you need to be at what time of place and day and situation, you can choose what you put on. They all hold values. They all hold messages. And depending on your audience, you can do that. So that's how I approach my work. It's not just about fashion, it's about what is going on inside, and then what do you want to communicate. So that work has taken me to Houston, to San Francisco, to Toronto, to all sorts of places across Canada. I have clients in Australia. My work has reached Italy. I never would have imagined that, but it's because innovativeness was something I picked up from my family. And then we get to City Council. We only have 5 minutes of this event, so I'm gonna make this part a little bit. I know. Yes, I do love a timeline. People know me about that. So my journey to City Council. Nope, it was just going to sleep, I think. My journey to City Council, I share with people that if you had asked me in July of 2024 if I was going to run for City Council, I would have told you to go pounds down. Nope, not doing it. Why? And I had a really good friend shoulder tap me. And he said, Michele, come on. You know how when opportunities present themselves and you try to push them away really hard? That was me. And then you toss it out like a fishing rod to people, and you go, no, like that's dumb, right? And every time I'd reel it back in, they're like, no, that's not dumb, like that, yeah. And the last straw was my mother. I said, oh, Mommy, like, people keep saying I should like do the City Council thing. I don't know. And she said, Michele, if an opportunity is presenting itself to you, there's a reason. She's like, forget the opportunity and look at yourself. Why are you pushing it away? And I'll tell you why I was pushing it away. Because anyone who has lived in Lloydminster for any length of time has a love-hate relationship with this place. Am I right or wrong? You're laughing because I'm right. And I will tell you that since, it goes up and down and up and down, and probably from 2020, I was in my hate phase. 2020 was hard for all of us. There was a lot going on. But 2020 for a Black American, regardless of where they live, was almost unbearable. The murder of George Floyd was generational trauma for Black Americans. Why? Because I remember listening to my dad not be able to watch Mississippi burning and the lynchings for a particular reason, because he had witnessed them. I remember him talking about, March on Washington and being stoned and being the house being tried to on fire. And when you watch someone who could have been any part of your family on videotape go through that, there is, we talk about generational trauma for Indigenous friends in Canada. This is the same thing. It is in our DNA. And in Lloydminster at that time, for whatever reason, we live in this global situation where you see things from across the board and you start deciding and things, and people in Canada and people in the city were taking things from over there and deciding what that was for them, and I could not handle it. Because, number one, no one in this region knows what it is like to be Black American. No one in this region understands the length and the depth of the trauma, yet people had opinions on what they thought that was. I was angry. How dare you judge a situation you know nothing about? And then I got to be the token one, because I live here. So people got to, Michele, can you come talk to our group about racism and discrimination? So now I'm like the racism teacher now? No. Okay, but see, I was pushed and pulled because I felt a responsibility to inform. So I went to one of the ones and I was the guest speaker and I did share what it is, what it isn't, and what you should know, and why racism and inequality training is a personal growth journey, people didn't want to hear that. They wanted to hear that they were right. And I was mad. Because remember that picture of me in the Chamber of Commerce right there? In that same era, I remember doing my business and having to drive to Provost at the time they were burning crosses in Provost. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And my husband said to me, I don't want you going down there, because I had to travel at night. He goes, do you have to go down there? I said, I do. I have to go work with this lady. And he goes, I don't want you driving at night. And this was before the cell phones, just on the road. And so fast forward to 2020, when people thought they knew about Black racism, Black American stories, I was in my full hate of Lloydminster. Yeah, full. And that lasted. Because my business is online, I did not have to deal with the place. So I just took my US clients on, I took my Australian clients on, see you later, I work through the dot, I will go to the grocery store, maybe, but I usually use pickup so nobody has to see me, I quit going to events, I quit giving to stuff, I quit this place, I swear to you. Until about July of 2024. When my life was really good. My kid's great, my marriage is great, my business is great, I love it all and stuff. And I said, you know what, the last thing I don't like about my life? Here. And then it became the Michele Charles Gustavson City Council Personal Growth Development Plan. Because I saw City Council as a way to heal my trauma with this place. It was a way to find my way back to maybe to love. We're not quite there yet. But you know what I'm finding? Through the campaign trail, through talking to people, meeting people, seeing the problems, hearing the problems, every problem actually has a heart behind it. And the more I use who I am and my skills and those values, the more I creep closer. Just every day. A little closer to Lloydminster. I didn't say it yet. You see how I didn't say it yet? That's my journey. And so what you'll see there is me being sworn in with my kid and my husband, City Council. Oh, I was going to show, I'll just fast forward that. That's just me back in the day when I was talking about debating, but that doesn't matter. You can see that later, or you can go on your archives. So here's what I want you to know, is that every person's Black history is just a story. You see how I crossed that out like that? It's their Black story. So my story of, you know, growing up as the only in the class and they just want to touch your hair, to the cross burnings or whatever, like, you will find every layer of someone's Black story. It's impossible to know them all. Impossible. But what you have to know is that when you see a face that is a shade tone, brown, tan, beige, whatever, they're gonna have one of them or many of them. And then when I was finishing writing these talks, sometimes I get these like inspirations. Like some people follow me on Instagram, or I get these like inspirations. I'm like, before something is ever called legacy, it first begins as a story. And I think of like my dad, it's like, he wasn't trying to make a legacy. He's just living his life, right? Living life in tune with values, in tune with a compass, and all of a sudden, it's me standing as a city councillor, first Black, okay, what now? How did that happen? So what I want you to know, and as you move forward, is that whatever you're doing now is actually creating your legacy. And this is a really famous quote within the Black community, and it's an unknown. I tried to search. I searched for it's an unknown. I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. There is no way that William Henry Jackson, Gerald's son Charles Sr., could have known that their great-great-granddaughter is a city councillor as the first black, okay, come on, what? They could have never known. But the legacy builds. And now the story continues. So this is my daughter, Brooke, and husband, Chris. And she is her own black heritage. She carries that whole line. She carries all of those values. And I'm already seeing, I'm like, man, this kid, listen, super proud. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. You did not have to come. Oh, thank you for viewing. Okay, thank you. You did not have to be here. Many didn't. Many aren't interested in the stories. And there's a reason why it's called Stories Untold. Without you listening, it remains as a story untold. So congratulations to you. You're that much farther ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for viewing. Thank you, Councillor Charles Gustavson. Do you know what's so funny is as I did mine, I kept going, oh, I wanted to say this. Oh, I wanted to say this. And we have notes and we've memorized, and it's our story, so we know it. So tears, you saw I choked a little bit, and there are stories as to why our fathers' stories make us choke. Someone asked me, and I'm just going off what you said there, yeah, but you never encountered any racism here. As a matter of fact, I have a brother who is mixed, different moms, both white. Just kidding, Dad had a flavor. 4 of us, ha! Coolest thing is, because he was raised, he's Dutch and Trini, he was raised with his Dutch mom. And there's terms these days called white passing. Yes. It's a term. I don't love it, but Indigenous people get it. My best friend is from Onion Lake, but she has hazel eyes and light hair. Don't think for a second she didn't endure problems on both sides in Onion Lake. But to go on what you were saying, I endured it too. And I've said to people, my brother included, racism is very real. It involves hatred. That's why I said there's prejudice, there's unconscious bias, and that's very, very thick in Lloydminster. And I stayed away from saying, Lloyd, because when I made the choice to plant my roots, I put it in the middle. And I said, these kids are gonna have a chance to know it all. Do you know what someone said to me when I bought that acreage on the 4 mile? Out on the 4 mile, first of all, oh, I know where that is. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And I was like, what the heck? What are you talking about? That, good thing I know languages. That's a different dialect, Saskatchewanese. Don't be surprised you find a cross burning. Again, it's that like, yo, what? Mississippi Burning is a movie. That's not real. Hey, Bernie, it's the dark people calling. And so notice we're kind of laughing when we go like this. That is I don't know if that's our DNA, but we're going, what? What? You're hitting us with words in a way that we're not even getting angry. We're just like, you still think that way? This was an opportunity. I, as I mentioned, was very sick. I too pulled away from this community. And I'm only adding this now because we've been linked. It is a very interesting thing. Then we pulled away from each other in a weird way, raising our kids. I mean, this mama with that pregnancy, woo, was a good time. You did it. We all suffered that. I suffered those things too. And yes, I have done a lot of things in this community too. One of the first street fests, The World is Our Kitchen. I have taught Spanish, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, the immigration program. And guess what happens? Thank you, we needed your input, but we're gonna fire all of the brown people now, and we'll take it from here. Don't think for a second that that doesn't happen here in Lloydminster, but what are you seeing? Joyous, powerful, resilient, happy, and proud women. Just like I showed you a male, we exist, we're still here, and it goes across everyone. last tidbit. So my coworkers know this because I'm like, one time, I'm basically the old lady that's like, one time, when I first moved here, actually, I worked for SCAT Services, which is actually an acronym for my siblings' names, because my stepdad owned it, Les Harper. And I was a dog catcher and a pest control agent. And so one time he said, "Hey, Angie." Notice I don't really like Angie that much. "Hey, Angie, I got a run for you. And I'm going to need you to head down to Provost real swift." So when you said that, I was like, you did it too. Yes, I did. 5'2", jumps out of a truck. "Yeah, I heard you have a mouse problem. You sure you're supposed to be here?" And I didn't know. So I'm like my jovial, "Yeah, but I'm okay. Like, yeah, this is the address," whatever. No cell phones. "I don't think you're in the right place." And it wasn't. I was like, whatever. Drives back, blue, blue, blue. "Oh, we didn't tell you. Yeah, they've got a bit of a KKK problem down there." Again, it's like, wait, what did you do to me? 25 years. I even wrote for the source. That's now in the archives, bringing back the archives. We now will be having everything on microfiche, and everything's being scanned in, so come and check it out. In there in 2008, I wrote the article that I had brought my children here, that people don't know how to deal with us. What are we? Who are we? What are we doing? And believe it or not, this is what used to happen. There was no online. People cut out the articles, anything they didn't like, and it's random people in Lloydminster. And we make that face of Lloyd because we know it's only a small amount of people, right? They cut it out, and they highlighted parts of my own editorial that was introducing me to the city and to the newspaper, highlighting why I couldn't say things like curly hair. These are things I've kept, little stories, like I said, like she said, and that's the only reason I'm taking it a little bit over. Even though I've known Michele for all these years, these are things as sisters we don't get to talk about. We don't get to. They're always happening. My kids have faced it. When my brother said, "Yeah, but there's not really racism. You grew up with Dutch people and people think you're white." Yes, there is. And you know what my kids say? Have they asked us? Yes, to live on an acreage. You're getting the country life. I love my farmers. They'd come and clear my yard, clear my lane. I learned all the lingo. I'm picking up what you're baling, what you're swathing. That's my favorite. Baling what you're swathing. Danny got bullied every time on that bus. We're on the bus going to Queenie for the country kids. You bet. And how do I go, yeah, I was bullied by black and white, same thing. Very bullied, beat up. And just because you shared that, I'm sharing it so you know. I made mine happy because that's what I'm proud of and that's who makes me who I am. And also, I play with kids for a living. So it's very hard for me to not be happy. But to bring your kids away from something so they can have a better life and then they too are hitting those obstacles. The beauty of Lloydminster, though, is that we remain steadfast. And I said, I plant my roots here. And I'm going to grow. And I'm going to make a difference and contribute. Thank you for listening to that. Michele and I could talk to you for days. Like I said, February, they gave the shortest month. There's people who say, it's racist. Nope. Because history, everybody else gets their time. And we have 28 days and an hour and a half to tell you so much. Thank you. Yes. You know what we forgot? Thank you so much. Also, in this little bit, we're going to leave it for questions. If there's questions that people think they want to ask and they want an answer that they think the group might like, and then we're also available as you have time to go through. You actually have access to the whole museum. The Black History exhibit is down that hall. And this exhibit here is to show you the life of a little mixed kid in the 70s and my kids and the difference I make. Yes, I raised them alone. And yes, we were poor. And yes, Michele told me, hey, Ange, I think you're functioning only at about 70%. And when she said someone tapped her on her shoulder, she taps me. Where's that 30%? Wear yourself. Put on your costume for that time. That's this museum too. The colonists have their story too. And it's not as boring as we think. History's beautiful. Take your time to enjoy it, talk to one another, and yeah, if you have questions, does anyone have a question that they'd like to ask Michele or I? Okay, I hear that. People are like, yeah, but I have a lot of questions. Then we are here. You know where to find her. And then also, please feel free to take one of our brochures because we offer several different activities, not just presentations. Yes?
Almost important for everyone to hear. So when we discuss history and the struggles and the barriers that we faced in our history, so that we can heal from it and also celebrate what we have today. For those that say, like, just forget about it, or it's not important, or you're dwelling on the past, or let's just move on from that. How do you navigate that? Like, how do you respond to that?
I think it's important to remember that the ones who are saying that to you is a very, very small percentage. They just happen to be the loudest. So I think, number one, knowing that, not acknowledging it. It doesn't matter. Your story is your story, and it's more important that you understand what your story has given you. So just like I shared, the different values that I could see while I was putting this together, I'm like, wow, there's a reason. If I look back on each of the stories that I've gone through, good or bad or ugly, they all involve those values. And so I operate from them. So first of all, ignore them. Second of all, know what your stories have given you. Third of all, operate through those values, and those voices get less and less.
What would you say to a 13-year-old who's in school, whose peers are hearing this mimicked from their families? How would you have them navigate a situation?
I've been there. Yeah, I remember in grade 8 when I was in the hall and we were at all the lockers. Yes, Laird girl. And I came around the corner, and someone who was a very prominent businessman in this town called me a goddamn darky. And I turned around and I slapped him. And I was about, I guess that's 14. I didn't know what to do with those words, but I knew it was temporary. Now, the slapping portion, that lasted 1 second, and I shouldn't have done that. That was assault. Or I guess it's battery, but anyways. I shouldn't have done that. But I think when you're a youth, you kind of don't know where to put it, and that's where I put it in that moment. So I think what's really important for the 13-year-old to know is that feeling of what they hear is actually temporary, but they don't know that because you're 13. Because you don't have the cognition to know that, like, what someone has said to me makes me feel a kind of way, and that feeling can be temporary, right? And so, first of all, knowing that it's temporary, and then going, okay, so they said that. What does that mean for me? Do I have to take it on board? Having tools of how I don't take it on board. What's the way I don't? Do I go do my art? Do I go do my music? Do I go do my studies? What is the way that I don't take it on board? That's resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back. There needs to be tools for that. And so I know that some of the programming that is around the city for youth that offers them tools, these days we call it mental health. Back in the day we didn't call it something. It just was like, get over it, right? But mental health initiatives are just there to give you tools to be able to do just that. So those, if youth can be put in those circles where they are acquiring those tools now, that's how they get through it. But It's temporary, just like when I got hit in the face with a rock. My mom said, yeah, they don't like you because, but that's still temporary. It was a moment in time. Did it hurt? Yes. But resilience. It's a non-answer. It's too big. Sorry,
No, that's what would happen if you kept us here talking. It would continue. On that note, we do have, that is the success. We have Youth Art Club. Now we have Chess Club. And out of the woodworks, you're getting these dynamics of different people that want to do something. When you have a room with 4 different backgrounds playing chess, because these boys just want to come in and play chess for 2 hours? Yeah. So we together, and investing more in arts and culture is so important. You know, when we were here first, Jack Kemp used to always host community events and lessons. That's actually where I first started teaching Spanish, was we just gave free Spanish lessons to the community. And that's where Alex they had hoop dancing, he did native drumming. It just takes resiliency and some figures that can stay for a bit, for long enough, to build up consistency. So my advice to you, I had kids that I had to say the same thing. It's very difficult, but it is exactly, keep going. I say all the time, just keep swimming.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Like I said, this was time well spent, and we appreciate you. Thank you.